Well, we've got another eyebrow-raising revelation tonight about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his financial dealings with a billionaire buddy. Last week, ProPublica revealed that virtually every year for decades, Thomas has been treated to luxury vacations by billionaire conservative donor Harlan Crow, including trips on his private jet and super yacht worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, which, crucially, Thomas never disclosed in his financial disclosures. Now we've learned there are other financial dealings between the two men that Thomas also didn't disclose. In 2014, Crow bought several properties in this quiet residential neighborhood in Savannah, Georgia, that had belonged to Clarence Thomas and his relatives, including a house where Thomas's mother was still living and two vacant house lots. The purchase marks the first known instance of money flowing from Crow to Thomas. And although a Watergate-era law requires justices and other officials to disclose details of most real estate sales over $1,000, and this was $133,000, Thomas never disclosed his sale of the properties. In fact, Thomas has gone silent. He has not responded to the report today. Crow has issued a statement. He says he purchased Thomas's mother's house to preserve it for posterity. But as Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, tweeted last week, it's not like Harlan Crow is some apolitical pal of Thomas. He constantly has cases before the Supreme Court. He funds groups that argue for outcomes that benefit him. One group filed 8 briefs before the court. Thomas sided with Crow in all 8 cases. And Senator Chris Murphy joins me now. What's your reaction to this latest report on this house sale?
I just think we are coming to understand that there is an incredibly intimate financial relationship between Harlan Crow and Clarence Thomas and his wife. It may be that they have been financing a certain lifestyle for the Thomases, and this has been true in secret for the better part of the last 20 years. Now, Thomas says, well, I sought guidance on this, and I was told that I didn't have to report anything from a personal friend who doesn't have cases before the court. Well, that's just not true. I mean, there may not be cases before the court in which Harlan Crow's name is in the title, but he funds a massive infrastructure that files briefs before the court. So there are constantly cases before the court in which Harlan Crow registers a public opinion through the groups that he funds. And as I mentioned in that tweet, it just doesn't seem coincidental that every time Harlan Crow declares an opinion on a case before Clarence Thomas sides with the guy who seems to be funding a lot of his lifestyle, his vacations, and the purchase of his properties. That's a huge problem. It is not something that we allow in American democracy.
Well, we do kind of allow it, is the thing. Like, I mean, like, here's the question is, and so then what? I mean, it does seem like the Article 3 judiciary kind of makes its own rules. There's no ethical guidelines for the Supreme Court justices. They can kind of do whatever they want. And it's sort of like, well, what are you gonna make me do?
Yeah, no, so you are right that there are 9 individuals at the highest levels of the federal government who are effectively exempt from any ethical rules, and those are those Supreme Court justices. The rest of the federal judiciary actually has a binding code of conduct, and there are consequences for those judges if they violate the code of conduct. We have a code of conduct. Members of Congress have an ethical code, and there are consequences from the body in which we sit if we violate that code. The Supreme Court basically has told us for decades, don't worry about it. We don't need a binding code. We don't need to adopt one. Congress, you don't need to apply one to us because we can just handle it ourselves. There's no problems. Well, now we see that they obviously can't handle it themselves, and so we need to pass legislation that creates a code of conduct, disclosure rules, just like all the other federal judges are subject to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a real estate sale is like a black and white issue that you put in a financial disclosure. But I also wanted to ask you, I've been watching, and I think you have been watching what's been unfolding in Tennessee, both with the shooting there, the brutal shooting in a school, the aftermath of the gun protest there, the kicking out of the legislators, then just a week later, another mass shooting, this one in Louisville. And one thing that's really been striking to me, and you and I have been talking about this issue for more than a decade, unfortunately, is the reach of this. It is so striking to hear the governor of Tennessee say his wife had a friend who was killed in Nashville. Rick Scott, your colleague in Florida, said my banker was killed in Louisville. The governor of Kentucky saying a friend was killed. Like, do you think this shocking proximity of this violence, uniquely American, as you've documented in your book, is going to have an impact on lawmakers?
Well, unmistakably, it is. And as we see the spike in gun violence, we're now seeing 110, 120 people die every day of gun deaths, many of them suicides. It does increasingly personally affect more and more Americans. And you are seeing that more and more Republicans are deciding that they just don't want to have to face the wrath of all of these young people, all of these parents that are demanding action. That's why, for the first time in 30 years, we passed federal gun safety legislation last year. And that's why you see somebody like Bill Lee, who had been pretty unsympathetic to, this movement in the past, finally saying, hey, Tennessee needs a red flag law, something that the NRA opposes. So I think increasingly it's going to be impossible for Republicans to stand up against an anti-gun violence movement that is now, pretty mainstreamed in America. I think that's what the sort of next 10-year holds, is just the question of when Republicans start to advocate and vote for some of this stuff, not if they're going to do it.
It strikes me when we started the show talking about abortion that in both issues there's a kind of paradox at the heart of it, which is that the worst things get substantively. And I think things are really bad right now with gun violence. I mean, just as an empirical matter, it's shot up, right? Things are really bad in reproductive rights. We saw a right overturned after 60 years. The only silver lining is that the politics get better because the problem and the results of the policies that are being advocated for become so crystal clear. That's the only way out at a certain level.
Well, and listen, that's the essence of democracy, right? Is that, eventually you get to have a say on all these things at the polls. Yeah. And, for decades, the most vocal voices on the issue of guns were on the side of the gun lobby. I mean, if you held a town hall and somebody stood up and said, I want to talk to you about guns, you knew that they were going to be advocates for the Second Amendment. That's totally flipped. Today, in red and blue states, if somebody says, I want to talk to you about guns, they want you to pass the assault weapons ban or universal background checks. That's pretty exceptional that in only 15 years, the sort of the activation, the urgency, the power on this issue has flipped from one side to the other.
Senator Chris Murphy, thank you very much.